They say the greatest lie a bloodline can tell is that it is blessed. That the most dangerous rituals are not those performed in shadow, but the ones carried out in the open air in the name of protection. They promise you a guardian. They never tell you what or who you are truly inviting to the table. This is not a story of possession. This is a story of an inheritance of hunger. A story of a family who built an altar to a saint and awakened something that wore its skin. Family, gather close. This is the Dread Codex. And the story begins in a hollow of the Appalachian foothills where faith became a chain and devotion was the lock. My name is Graham. I do not trust family heirlooms. I do not believe in benevolent watchers. This is why. In the winter of 2007, my grandmother, Agatha Caldwell, died in her sleep in the old farmhouse at Sorrow's End, West Virginia. The doctor called it heart failure. We called it a release. For years she'd been changing. It began after my mother's wedding in '85. Grandma Aggie, a woman of stern Methodist stock, started a private devotion. In the overgrown family cemetery, beneath the skeletal arms of a lightning-struck black walnut tree, she set a stone. Not a headstone, a pedestal. She called it the Watcher's Rest. She claimed it was for St. Michael, for protection over the land, over the bloodline. Every dawn and dusk, she'd go with a bowl of spring water and a single unlit black candle. We thought it was eccentric grief for Grandpa. We were children. We didn't understand the first rule of hungry things: you do not feed them. The first sign was the silence. Not an absence of sound, but a consumption of it. Around the Watcher's Rest, birds didn't sing. Insects didn't stir. The air grew dense and listening. A cold spot clung to that clearing, even in July humidity, like a bruise that wouldn't fade. Then came Grandma's spells. She'd be shelling peas on the porch, and her hands would go still. Her eyes, the color of a winter creek, would film over, turning a dull, reflective gray. She'd speak, but the voice wasn't hers. It was a wet, grinding stone sound from deep in her throat. The land is thirsty, it would say. The roots are deep. Minutes later, she'd blink, cough, and remember nothing. We called them absent seizures. We were lying. As she aged, the spells didn't weaken. They intensified. Confined to her bed at 80, frail as parchment, she'd sit bolt upright with the strength of a timberman. Her spine would arch until the bones groaned, and that gravestone voice would demand, "Salt from the east well. Blood from a black-feathered bird. Light the candle." My father, a pragmatic man, began to comply. Out of fear. Out of a desperate, sinking sense that if he didn't, the hunger would turn from Grandma to someone else. To my mother. To me. Grandma died on a night of hard frost. The last thing she said with her own true voice was a rasped warning to my father. "Don't you stop, John. You keep the watch. It's yours now. It's in the soil." We buried her. We thought the weight would lift. Instead, it shifted. My mother, Margaret, was the first. A woman who'd never had a spiritual thought in her life. She woke one morning with her nightgown caked in dark Appalachian mud, her fingernails split and packed with earth. She had no memory of leaving her bed. But on the kitchen table sat a perfect dead crow, its neck neatly broken, arranged pointing toward the back window, toward the Watcher's Rest. The spells were hers now. They were worse, more violent. Where Grandma had muttered, Mom would shriek. She described sensations, the feeling of roots knitting through her marrow, of soil packing her lungs. She said at night, in bed next to my father, she'd feel the mattress dip on both sides. She'd see a shape next to him, a man-shaped darkness of dense, packed earth and old roots, its head turned toward her. Watching. We brought in help. Not doctors. In the hollows, you know what this is. We brought in Pastor Finch. He prayed in the clearing, read from Psalms. That night, every pane of glass in his truck shattered inward, covering him in a glittering cold rain. He never came back. Next was a sensitive from a nearby town. She walked to the edge of the clearing, placed a hand on the black walnut, and vomited violently. It's not a spirit, she choked. It's a claim. This thing, it's not haunting you. It's cultivating you. The altar isn't for St. Michael. It's a feeding trough. And your grandmother signed the deed with her devotion. My father, hollow-eyed and desperate, tried to stop the rituals. He refused to light the black candle. That night, the cold invaded the house. Not winter's chill, but the deep mineral cold of subterranean stone. Our breath plumed in the living room. Frost etched obscene root-like patterns on the inside of the windows. And from the woods we heard it, a low rhythmic thud, like a giant heart beating under the earth. My mother sleepwalked out of the house. We found her at the Watcher's Rest, barefoot in the frost, using her bleeding hands to dig at the base of the stone, whispering in that stone-sound voice, "Mine. The line is mine. We were trapped." The thing had a taste for our family. It had been fed by one generation, and it would not release the next. Then came my brother's wife, Lila. Sweet, city-born Lila, who thought she was marrying into simple country life. She was the new soil, the fresh branch in the bloodline. Within months, the signs touched her. She'd lose time, find leaves in her hair. She confessed to me, terrified, that she'd see a mudman standing in the corner of their bedroom, patient and still as a stump. The horror was no longer a secret. It was the house's third occupant. The final truth came from Old Man Brewer, who my father plied with whiskey until his tongue loosened. "Your granddaddy's granddaddy," he slurred. "First Caldwell here. This land weren't empty. The Cherokee knew. There's old things in these hills. Not devils. Older. Hungrier. Things that remember when flesh was soft and the world was dark and deep. They ain't evil. They're just consuming. They get a hold on a family through a bargain, a misdirected prayer, and they settle in. Like rot in a tree. They become part of the root system." He leaned in, his breath sour with fear and Jim Beam. "Your grandma's St. Michael? That altar stone, it ain't a shrine. It's a stake. It's pinning your family's name to the dirt. That thing in the ground, it thinks it owns you. And by the laws of the deep earth, maybe it does." The breaking point was the photo. We found it in Grandma Aggie's Bible, tucked behind Psalm chapter 23. A faded Polaroid. It showed the Watcher's Rest in daylight. And standing beside it, clear as day, was not a saintly figure, but a tall, emaciated shape of woven roots, dark clay, and petrified wood. Its face was a smooth, featureless stone. And beside it, her hand resting on its arm, as on a beloved patriarch, stood my grandmother, smiling peacefully. She hadn't been fighting it. She had been introducing it to the family. My father, in a fury of grief and terror, took a sledgehammer to the altar stone. He shattered it at noon. At exactly midnight, the beating under the house returned. Thud, thud, thud. The walls seeped a damp red clay. The smell of loam and decay filled the air. And from every shadow in the hallway, a chorus of voices spoke. Grandma's stone sound, Mom's shriek, Lila's whimper, all woven into one grinding, hungry command. You break the table, you become the meal. We fled that night, left everything, moved across 3 states. But the story does not end at the state line. My mother lives in a condo in Raleigh. She keeps the heat on high, yet she is always cold. She says she can still taste soil in every meal. Lila left my brother. She's in therapy. She dreams of being a tree, feeling something sap her vitality from below, branch by branch. And the farm at Sorrow's End. It was bought by a young couple from D.C., seeking a quiet life. They lasted 8 months. The realtor told us they complained of bad vibes, of nightmares of being buried alive. They left in the middle of the night. Last week, I received a package with no return address. Inside was a single smooth river stone, cold to the touch, and a note written in a handwriting that was an uncanny fusion of my grandmother's script and my mother's. The roots are long, Gran. The tree remembers the seed. We are not gone. We are patient. The watch continues. That night, I woke in my sterile apartment in Baltimore to a familiar scent seeping from the air vent, damp earth, crushed walnut leaves, and the faint, sweet odor of decay. On my bedside table, the river stone sat, glistening wetly. And from the dark corner where the street light didn't reach, I heard it, the soft, relentless thud of a heart beating under a world of stone. This is the story of the altar at Sorrow's End. It is not a possession story. It is a consumption. The most profound evil does not always hiss and snarl. Sometimes it stands quietly at the edge of the woods, waiting for an offering. It twists protection into predation, devotion into digestion, and love into a chain that binds generations to a hungry ancient dark. So listen closely, family. If you are ever shown a family ritual that feels too old, too specific, if the silence around a sacred spot feels not peaceful, but predatory, if you feel the slow, patient gaze of something that believes you belong to the land and the land to it, uproot yourself. Some legacies are not treasures, but burials. And some watchers do not guard you from harm, they guard their claim on you. If you have a story that haunts you, send it to contact.thedreadcodex@gmail.com. Your truth becomes our tale. Your likes and comments keep these stories alive. Until next time, may your path be lit. May your family tree bear only fruit, not thorns. Good night.